Hey guys, we are here today with Aaron. He traveled all the way from the great state of Illinois to Kansas City, Missouri, and we are looking at some pretty interesting U.S. historical firearms.
The only two I have.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of U.S. firearms either. I think we're both just mostly into like European guns mostly.
I'm into this weird thing called an M95.
Yeah, well, that's real weird, man. You should talk to a doctor about that. But
probably.
So we're going to talk about specifically the Lee Navy and the U.S. Krag rifle, kind of the pros and the cons of each one, and kind of what we think maybe the U.S. military should have stuck with. Should they have adopted the Krag and stuck with it, or should the Army adopted the Lee Navy and kind of fix some of the bugs? What we think, might have been the best choice for the U.S. military at the point. So first things first, let's just go ahead and show off the Lee Navy, because I know this thing is your pride and joy, and it is really sweet. You don't see them very often. This is the first complete, unsportered one I've seen in real life. You just don't see them very often.
No.
Probably most people call this something else other than Lee Navy when they see it. They probably think it's
honestly,
something else.
I don't think anybody, very rarely people have seen it, is the thing. Is that most of the time when I put this somewhere, post a picture somewhere, everybody's like, what is it? So it's a forgotten.
Yeah.
It's forgotten.
It's cool. Let's.
You want to pick it up?
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully it's in shot, obviously.
Yeah, here it is. It's a long boy. They're long.
Yeah.
And for being a long rifle, it doesn't feel as awkward as maybe like a long rifles kind of are.
I just described it to Danny when I got it out. It was like, it feels kind of miniaturized almost, like it's because it's 6mm obviously, so it's just smaller feeling versus a full typical 8mm or 30 caliber or something like that.
Yeah, and it's hard to describe without seeing it yourself, but the action length, the action length seems shorter and smaller, like the receiver length, and the barrel is thinner than on a lot of milsurps. So it seems like a shrunken gun. It almost seems like a training gun for kids or something. It's unique. This is a really unique milsurp.
Actually, now that you say that, in 22 that would have been so much fun.
Yeah. I can't think of another gun with this action, and we'll go ahead and address the straight pull sort of maybe misconception maybe about this gun, because a lot of people consider this a straight pull rifle, and I was just talking with Aaron about this, and I was thinking that this is either not a straight pull or it's the only true straight pull, and I'm not sure, because other straight pulls like the K31. Those all have all the bolts on those rotate.
Yes.
So it's really there's a camming surface in there, and you're just pushing it forward, but something's rotating.
Yes.
So if something's rotating, is it a straight pull, or is that just the action of your hand more like? Because in this, there's nothing that rotates. This action, it does not rotate. So it lifts up and back, and then forward and then down. And there's this camming surface in the front, or the locking lug surface in the front. But it's like a lift up and back.
Yes.
So is it a straight pull because it's not straight back?
No, but I think where it's technically camming action. And I think the issue is you're not turning the bolt. And the M95, the K31s, there is something turning, but you're not turning the bolt. So that's where the turn bolt, I think, idea comes in.
Yeah.
This is not a turn bolt. So where do you put it in? Where do you classify it? A straight pull, I guess, because you're not turning it. So, but it's unlike any other straight pull.
Yeah, it really
unlike
is.
Anything else.
This is really different. It's a lot different than the Ross rifle that's right behind you there on the wall. It's different than M95s or Mannlichers, whatever. It's just it's unique.
Very much so.
Which is really cool. I think we both like guns that are very different and very unique. And this one is both. So the contemporary for the Lee Navy is probably the Krag. That was kind of in the time period that was one of the top contenders, really. You have the 1890s. You kind of have some Mausers, and you have the Krags and stuff like that.
The Krag being adopted by the Army in '92, and starting production fully in 93, and then updates to those models as it goes along, and then 96 you have the Model 96 come out. So there's doing updates, continual improvement to it, and I have a 98 model that's got all let's bring it up, I guess. Yeah. So this is the Model 98, which is the final iteration of it, obviously of the Krag, of the US Krag, I should say. And so this is as close to as contemporary as we could get. The model, I guess a Model 93 would technically be the contemporary, because this came out, the Lee Navy came out in 1895. So, but it's pretty much, for the most part, I want to say it's pretty much the same. So it's big.
Yeah. It feels more rifle-y. Like, it doesn't feel like as a miniaturized, gun. As
it's like what I would expect from the time period. I have a Chilean 1895, similar in terms of overall size and weight, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a rough equivalent, essentially.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the pros and cons. If you want, I'll hold the Krag, and you can hold the Navy. Not saying that we're biased towards one or the other, but let's start with our list here. The first pro for the Lee is going to be the clip loading.
Yeah, so it is in-block clip loaded. Now, it's not the Mannlicher system. And in fact, it was Lee sued Mannlicher because in a weird case of spontaneous development, they both patented an idea in 1895 for an in-block clip, and Lee thought he had stolen his idea. And it was determined in the course of that investigation that it was simultaneous development and they had no influence on each other whatsoever. The Lee system is completely different. It is an in-block clip that looks like a stripper clip. We can show it here in a close-up in a minute. And it's a packet, 5 rounds. You load it into the gun, clips into place, bolt the gun forward, clip falls out. Don't need the clip. Done. It's just for loading. And in fact, you don't even need it to load it. It does not serve as the magazine feed lips, like the Mannlicher system does. So you do not need a clip to operate the gun. So you can load it, single load it, you can operate it without a clip. That, I think, is the superior system.
Yeah, I think, an in-block system that doesn't count on the clip being the feed lips. I think that's a major pro of the Lee system over the Mannlicher system, because maybe not so much back then with brand new clips, and everything, but at least today, there's a lot of in-block clips being reused like for decades now. Like I think especially like Italian Carcano clips are kind of notorious for always having troubles. So they're definitely not something you'll run into with the Lee Navy. Even if it's a really old clip or.
Well, I mean, even back in the day, the advantage being that you don't need to empty the gun to load it. You can pop it off, which you cannot do. Theoretically, you could do, I guess, in a Mannlicher system. You technically can, but it's tricky. Because I'm going to have people say, there's going to be people say you can. But you can, it's just very tricky and difficult. It's not supposed to be done that way. Whereas this is meant to be single loaded or packet loaded. And that's really what the in-block is for. It's just for packet loading and done.
Yeah.
Which, in reality, that's the advantage of an in-block system, is to packet load, bam, you're done, and you move on. To not have to worry about the clip after that, it's a great system.
Yeah. So then that'll go into the con of the Krag, which is the fact that for the most part, this is a single load only type of gun. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can kind of dump a handful, into these. And yes, some countries, made like packet loading things for the Krag. But did the US use packet loading for their Krags?
No.
So this is kind of a single only thing. You grab, handful of shells and try to dump it in here. Which is kind of it's a pretty, vicarious thing to do, especially if you're, being shot at.
Yeah. And we've talked about before on the podcast, like having to do stuff under duress. And that's not, it's got this big flap, so it's easier to open and everything like that. But like, that's a complex motion to get it in there and get it lined up without dumping ammunition on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just load a bunch in there, and then half of it ends up on the ground, you know?
Yeah. And I don't know if you've noticed this playing around, but I've played around with the Krag magazines a lot, and it seems like every now and then you'll get a weird hang up in the magazine. And I think especially with rimmed ammo, maybe like the lip of the rimmed ammo might catch like on the backside.
I've not had an issue with mine, but I don't shoot it as much maybe as somebody that has more more experience.
Or if you were getting shot at and you were like, shit, I got to put ammo in here, you know, and it could be a thing. I mean, I've had some little like hiccups where I've like tried, you know, putting like 3 or 4 at once, and then they bind up in some weird way, and I'm like, like how did that happen? Like there's little things that can happen. So if it's in the realm of possibility, and I'm just messing around, and it's happened to me, I'm assuming this is something that, you know, that happened to, you know, to soldiers.
Yeah, for sure.
So next we'll talk about the first pro for the Krag, which it's going back to this magazine design, and that is that you can top it off without opening the action. And this is kind of a weird pro.
It's one of the main reasons the U.S. Army selected the design. They were really big on the idea of being able to top off a magazine without opening the action.
Yeah. So it's and I heard this echoed with Johnson with the Johnson rifle. I don't know if you can see it on camera there, but it's a similar thing where how big of a pro this is just kind of depends on, I guess, what you're doing. But, you know, you can have a round in the chamber, you know, the bolt's closed, and you can be ready to shoot. But as you're ready to shoot, you can also, you know, open up the magazine and load a couple rounds in there. And then, you know, and then if something happened, even if the magazine's open, you could still, you know, fire.
The gun still operates, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess it's a pro. It's something unique to you know, like the Krag and the Johnson.
Yeah, I mean it is one of the main reasons they selected it, versus the Lee, which once the action is.
Oh. Okay, they should shut up now.
Should I say versus the Lee, and then did you cut yourself?
Yeah, I pinched my finger in the magazine, so like my pinky was right there, and I slammed.
That's a disadvantage.
I guess so. Yeah, my finger's bleeding because it just happened to be in the wrong spot when I shut the magazine. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But I pinched it pretty good.
Good job.
I'm gonna try to not get blood on your gun as I talk now.
Oh wait, that's more money.
Blood pitting. Let's smear the blood on the receiver. Blood pitting. Yeah. Worth extra money. Mm-hmm. So
the Lee action, once it is cammed and locked once it is in firing position, it is locked. Like it is not able to be moved unless you either fire the action or push the bolt release, which is on the side. And
I have never heard of such a thing before on a gun where
there's a bolt release lever, a button, I guess you could call it, on the Lee Navy. And that's the only time the action can be opened, is either after firing or pushing the bolt release. So yeah, you would have to have the action fully exposed to be able to load it. And I guess that's a disadvantage. I don't understand why they liked this idea so much, but that was a pro in terms of, at the time period, they wanted something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like it just kind of happened to be a pro of like the Krag, that you can do it, but like all bolt actions, you have to open the action in order to load the magazine. That's just the thing. Like every other one that I can think of, except the Krag, you have to open the bolt to load the magazine.
Because that's the only one I know that has a magazine that opens like that.
Yeah, so technically, I guess it is a pro. But it's a pro unique. That goes along with the con of the, being sort of a weird packet. I mean, people are going to talk about those guys that are on the, like European, sporting team where they do like target practice with Krags, and those guys, they have speed loaders that are like specialty. You just can't find them. I've tried to buy them. Mm-hmm. You can't find them like in the U.S. And those guys can they can load their Krags crazy fast with those little fancy speed loaders. But that's like a modern competition shooting type of thing. But I feel like I had to say that just because people are going to call out that section because there's a clip of that on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I mean,
doing that.
It exists. That is a modern compensation for a bad idea.
yeah, it's a modern designed competition for a bad a bad magazine design. And it's.
I mean, I wouldn't say bad. Bad is a wrong term. It's not a bad design. It's just a bad design for a military rifle, I think. In terms of the way this was designed, this is not something. Nothing was copied.
Yeah.
Nobody copied the Krag.
Yeah. I mean, and from like, if you're a hunter or maybe a big game hunter or something like that, like I could see this being an advantage, maybe just like as a civilian hunting rifle, right? Like,
well, I would agree, because how often do you find Krags that are not sporterized?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. But like, so I'm just imagining me alone, I'm hunting a bear or something crazy, and I need to reload for whatever reason, but I'm afraid this bear might jump out at me at any moment, or or I don't know, whatever animal, and maybe then, I'm like, okay, my gun is ready to shoot. All I have to do is pull a trigger at any moment while I'm reloading.
There's a lot of scenarios, I think, that the U.S. Army tried to predict would happen and did not happen.
That's true.
I think that's a lot of the issue, is that there's scenarios here that they're planning for that just were not either feasible, realistic, or just didn't happen the way they thought they would.
Yeah. All right, that's probably enough on the magazine. So let's go to the next pro of the Lee, which is the fact that it is shorter and lighter than the U.S. Krag.
Just barely.
Yeah, just a smidge.
Which is enough, both. I guess, if you're carrying it around all day.
Yeah. So what is this? 20?
So that's, it's 8 pounds, and then overall length is just under 48 inches. It's 47.7, and then the barrel length is 28 inches.
Yeah. So the Lee's 8 pounds. The U.S. Krag is 8 pounds 7 ounces, and the barrel slightly longer. So you got a 30-inch barrel versus a 30-inch barrel on the Krag versus a 28. It's 2 inches and it's only 7 ounces. But here's the thing with leverage, and I think this is something a lot of people don't fully appreciate. But even though it's just a little bit of weight, the further out that weight is, it really increases the perceived weight of the gun. And it's weird. It's only 7 ounces, but just holding this and then holding the Navy, it's like you can really feel the difference.
It feels. When I looked, we had to verify the weights, because we looked it up too, and I was shocked, because I thought it doesn't feel like it weighs just 7 ounces less.
Yeah, it feels closer to like a pound or something.
It feels a significant amount, which is versus 7 ounces, I wouldn't say is a significant amount, but I mean, when you're cutting,
It's okay. I hit that all the time.
When you're cutting holes, drilling holes in the bolt knob to save weight, you're trying to compensate for as much weight as possible. That obviously 7 ounces is a big deal when you're carrying it around all day.
Yeah. I mean, I would have guessed, like, before we knew the actual weight, that it was like a pound, something like that, lighter maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that's another thing too. If you're carrying this around all day, I mean, what's the saying? Ounces make pounds, but it's something. It maybe not be a huge deal. It may not sound like a big deal. Maybe it's not.
I think the issue, the point we're getting at, is that it feels like this is better balanced, so you don't notice the weight.
Exactly. Yeah, better balanced.
Yeah, so
more.
You don't notice it versus that, which it kind of feels more front heavy because of just the length of it.
Yeah, exactly. Just a better overall balancing, handling, feeling gun. The Lee Navy is for sure. So the next pro of the Krag, and this is the last of the pros that we could think of, like a pro of a Krag versus other guns of the time period, is the very smooth bolt throw on this gun. And indeed, it is a very, very smooth gun overall. Just kind of no binding feeling to it. You have that initial sort of cocking the action.
Yeah, it's cock on open.
But not bad at all. Like it's and so I fired this exact Krag on the range with your ammo, and just to prove a point, I was able to extract just fired cartridge out with just using my pinky on the bolt. So it's a very smooth, very easy to extract and work on. Like the bolt's very smooth.
Yeah, I mean that's in line with the lack of locking surfaces, because you have less stuff to drag around.
That's true. You have just less friction, with the lack of all the lugs. So I mean, this is on smoothness, like just working back and forth. It's on par with like a Mannlicher Schonauer, I would say, something like that. Like it's very nice.
I've not dealt with one of those personally. You have though, right?
Yeah. It's nice. It's up there for sure.
I would compare it to my K31 that I had in terms of smoothness. A lot of people like that K31 for smoothness, and yeah, very similar in terms of just like you. It's difficult to know you've chambered around. That's something that Annie noticed too. Is that when I first got it, I was like, did it chamber around? Because it doesn't feel it. You don't feel it pick up. You don't feel it strip off. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, you load the magazine. You go and you chamber around, and then you kind of go like, huh? And you want to you double check because it didn't.
It doesn't feel any different to load around than it does to do the action like he's doing right now.
Yeah. There's hardly any friction or anything. Just the magazine system, the way it feeds cartridges is just it's very smooth.
It's because it comes up off to the side and then it kind of just dumps it into the action for you. You don't have to do the work of pushing it up into the barrel.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
kind of dumps it down for you.
So you don't even know, and that was confusing at first.
Yeah, but it's nice. It's definitely a pro. It's an above average feeling bolt. Mm-hmm. The next pro of the Lee is going to be the action speed. Right. So being a straight pull.
Well, I'll do the action speed and then I can't lock the bolt. That's how that works, right? So, obviously I haven't shot this because I don't have ammunition for it yet, but in terms of... I mean, that's easy. I don't feel any movement. I don't feel any dragging or pulling or anything like that. And it's just smooth. Like... There's no movement whatsoever. And it takes a bit to get used to this idea because you're actually having to pull up on it. And then when you go down, you actually have to have momentum behind it and it locks into place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the odd thing about the first time you pull the bolt back on a Lee. If you're used to like straight pull rifles that just are perfectly in line and they just go back and forth, where the Lee it's kind of up and then back.
You can clearly see it in the video here. It goes up. And then when you go back down, you need to have some momentum behind it, so it cams it back into place.
If you work the action slowly, like just gently, whatever, it'll kind of bind up.
It doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, it's a gun that you have to really slam hard.
No, you don't have to baby it. That's the thing, and that's how I tell people when they handle an M95 the first time is that it binds up when you try to go slow. And because you're also with an M95, you also have lateral movement because it's rotating everything. Yeah. So you have lateral movement, and then it binds up when you're trying to push the bolt one way or the other. This you can't. It just goes straight, and it doesn't bind up at all because there's nothing for it to do. It just slides into place.
Yeah.
Because there's no rotation. There's no bolt surface. So there's no the recesses were rotating for the bolt head. It just locks into place.
Yeah. And another thing too, if you don't mind, another thing too with this is the bolt handle positioning on this, how it has that dog leg-ish sort of bolt handle. Like it really does swoop down really far, right close to the trigger.
Which is Danny's favorite spot.
Yeah, so that you can grab this bolt, middle finger, pull the trigger. And it's a...
I don't know how many people were going to trigger dry fire in that.
Yeah, but it's a doable thing. You could just work this kind of like the Mad Minute style that everyone does. SMLEs. Kind of wonder where the Lee got the idea from. But this is definitely it's fast. Like you can work this thing fast.
Yes.
It's probably the closest thing that you could get working like that to really like a semi-auto almost.
I guess, yeah. I mean, the problem is that you don't have a lot of reports on stuff like that because they didn't attempt that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell because we can make all these assumptions based on we could do that fast, but then we don't have anything to back it up because they did speed trials and stuff of loading of the Krag and stuff like that, but then that I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean maybe. You get a little bit of grit in there, a little bit of mud, the Marine carrying this thing and in Cuba got a little bit of
Or
something in it, and then, or in the Philippines, and then maybe just a little bit of dirt turns that, fast, smooth action into.
For the most part, the reports that I've seen that I have been able to find, that they liked it. There was a very few reports of, we'll get to this the next point, but of the stopping power potential. But like, other than that, most of the reports I've seen said it was favorable. It was just there was some issues with the ammunition, which we'll get into.
Yeah. I think there's kind of an understanding, especially in the time period that like it's it's a mechanism. You have to keep it clean in order for it to work. There's not that. I think we have like a modern expectation that a gun should be able to get filled with mud and work. And I don't think that was well established, in the 1890s.
No, I mean you would obviously do testing.
Mud testing was a thing. Like militaries, did do it at the time, but
because you have to be able to recreate the idea of what a battlefield could be, and obviously a battlefield is not going to be a dry, clean, ranged environment. Yeah. Which is what surprises me that they never did that for the Krag. Watch Osias's video on the Krag, and you can find out that they didn't do any testing on the Krag beforehand. Which let you know makes perfect sense when you see the Krag in person.
Yeah. So, all right. So now we're talking about the ammo a little bit. This is the last pro of the Lee, and it's also a con of the Lee, and that is the ammo.
Yeah.
It's a pro and a con at the same time.
Do you want to hand me one of those?
Yeah.
So I have some original U.S. Navy surplus. These are original rounds. 6mm, obviously. And
here's a 8x56 for scale.
It looks like a Carcano, 6.5 Carcano, in terms of overall design. They never updated the Spitzer, stayed with the torpedo bullet the whole time. The issue with this is their idea was to use a 6mm round going very fast, which would have the potential stopping power of a 30 caliber round going slower. So the standard round was 2,500 feet per second. That was the target. In 1895, that's ambitious. That's pretty ambitious even nowadays for a 6mm cartridge. I mean, that's a pretty decent fast clip for a cartridge like this. So in 1895, that was extremely ambitious. We have issues with powder. We have issues with production. Winchester, once again, comes up with a problem of ammunition with Winchester. Weird. That's almost like a certain 1903. Oh,
and
whatever.
1917.
And 1917s. Yeah, they blew up 1917s too. So Winchester, again, making the ammunition. We have reports going back saying of duds, or squibs, or reports of way overpressurizing. Reports of guns that were finding ammunition batches that were 40,000 psi above the max. We have potential for massive catastrophic failure. So we have issues where the Marines weren't given ammunition to train with these guns. They were training with 4570 trapdoors, which is what they replaced. So they didn't have time to train with them because they didn't have ammunition that was good. And then the experimental powder, to be able to push a bullet that fast at that time period, was so corrosive, it destroyed the barrels. This is a second contract rifle, and there was a fire that destroyed about, I don't know exactly how many, but there was quite a few that were destroyed in a fire in a warehouse. This is commonly thought people like, okay, well, they bought these to replace the ones that were burned. Not just that, they bought these to replace the ones that were burned out because the barrels were gone, throats gone. The powder just burned through it. So either you can argue that the ammunition maybe wasn't up to par, or the metallurgy of the barrel wasn't up to par, but in reality, I think the death knell of this gun is this right here. The manufacturer and the consistency and the powder they chose to push it as hard as they could just failed it. And it could not be rectified without major investment. And by the time they're thinking about this major investment, the 1903 was being thought of and starting to be tested and trialed. So there was no reason to continue having a separate weird design, a separate weird cartridge, and they just dropped it. They just figured they'd cut their losses and drop it. And I think this is what killed the gun.
So it's very, modern thinking, a small bore, high velocity gun that has, the stopping power of something bigger and slower. But there's, obviously there's tons of advantages to having a smaller diameter bullet with weight. The big one was with the Marines. I think it was in Cuba, where supply was an issue. So you had, the Army with their larger caliber, rifles, and then you have the Marines with their Lees. And because for the same amount of weight, you can get so much extra ammo with the 6mm, that the Marines were able to carry more ammo and chip in more ammo. So they were doing much better on that front. And again, that's just it's a very modern concept, but it was probably just too far.
There's a lot of contemporary reports and people of the time period that the stopping power argument was a big deal too even back then. So when the Navy selected this, there was a lot of people that were arguing with them, like, this is a bad idea, this is not got enough stopping power, that kind of thing. And there was an article on Naval Admiral where he talks about, we see these other countries making these steps forward in terms of rifle advancement and development and stuff like that. We're making a leap. So they made a leap forward. They did. It was a huge leap forward in terms of idea and concept.
Maybe a couple leaps forward, really.
But it was too far for the time period and for the technology that was available. It was too ambitious.
Yeah, which happens. It happens in with military weapons, military adoption. A lot of times, if something is just too far, if it's too far advanced, it can't be. Like there's a saying, militaries tend to they're fighting the last war. Yeah. So it's 1895. Geez, like what's the last word to that? And then
I don't even know.
This is way far advanced. Probably blew most of their minds. Even that something that a small bullet like that could be as crazy effective. Yeah. But like we said, it's a big pro. It's neat. This wouldn't be misplaced on maybe even like in a modern rifle, like a modern semi-auto or something. No. A cool 6mm. But
and I mean, it's standard 6mm bullet. It's 244, 243, 244. So it's not anything weird. It's not like a 253 and then it's 6mm. It's like it's an actual 6mm. So it's weird to see as Danny, when I told him about this, it's weird to see concepts from 1895 and we're talking about them now like they're new ideas. And it's like, oh wait, no, they had the same exact statements back in 1895 where they're talking about stopping power and using a faster bullet. And its mirrors actually a lot, I've been told, I've not looked into it myself, but me talking about this to people is like, that sounds like the development and when they released the M16, the whole argument and back and forth of a fast, small caliber round.
Small, fast caliber round with powder issues.
Yeah. It's the same exact argument of why we shouldn't have adopted the M16 in terms of that. I've seen that compared before. I've not done the research myself, but it's very similar. Yeah. And it's just like, wow, we've been arguing about this for 60 years, 70 years, 100 years.
Yeah. It's nothing new under the sun, and it's just it's neat.
We're getting into cons then.
Yeah, so that's it with the that was kind of the con.
I mean, the ammunition is a pro and con.
The first con for the Lee is the weirdest. This is the weirdest part.
Danny didn't know about this.
Yeah, no, like you wrote. So he kind of rotated the rifle.
I've been hiding it from the video camera, so we'll see. It looks pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens, Danny?
It looks like something broke.
We're missing something.
Fell off.
There's a huge hole here. And Danny was going to ask me, and I stopped and I said, "No, it's not missing anything." And
because you see it at first, it's like, oh, like it looks like something clamped on or fit in or screwed in or something.
Right. You know what it reminds me of? It looks like the a Berthier, where it has that extra cover on the top of it. You know what I mean? The 5-round one.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what it looks like to me. There should be something there like that, but it doesn't have one. And I don't know the reason behind this. I don't know the reason or why, but it's so you can drop an ammunition out while the action's closed. We assume.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the only real reason.
Because this little tiny indentation up here is so that the bullet can slide out.
Yeah, so the clip, the in-block clip, does fall out of the gun when
After
it's first
chambered.
loaded.
Yeah.
But then there's some reasoning they thought that you might want to quickly unload the gun, maybe.
I don't even know.
Because I don't think that's a feature.
I don't even know if there's a way to release the magazine, and that's just something beyond my knowledge, without opening the action.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this is there, but that is there. We assumed to allow the ammunition to fall out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe when this rifle is in Othaius's hands, maybe Othaius will tell us.
Othaius, when I first got this, I posted it in the CN Arsenal Discord, and I was very quickly given a message of, hey, can we borrow that in the future? And I said, sure. Obviously.
Yeah, that'll be a swell episode.
I would love to know the background of this and the idea behind it and everything like that. But I mean, we're hitting the cliff notes, what we see in Wikipedia and stuff like that. I don't know a deep dive of any of this, really.
Yeah.
Most of the books you can find are like, oh yeah, the Lee Navy was a thing. They're like, you don't have a book on the Lee Navy, you have a book on naval arms.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw it. Yeah, there's a book on like naval arms, and it's in that, but there's no. But
there's no Lee Navy book.
Maybe there's something hidden deep in the archives, that can be found.
What is neat though is that it is still a part of the Marines. It's featured on a decoration. I'll have to find out from Sam which one it is, but there's a decoration that has a Lee Navy on it. And you can still get as part of the Marines.
We'll figure out what that is and put it on the screen.
It's weird. Like, why is that there?
I guess, I don't know. It's part of Marine Corps history. Maybe it was their first like sharpshooting gun or rifle.
I don't know. It's
a
very odd thing. I didn't realize it was there, but yeah, it is. It was weird.
So the last con of the Krag is a little bit model specific.
Yes,
but it was an issue. And maybe even with the simplified one, it's an issue. But that is the wickedly overcomplicated rear sight on this guy.
Yeah, so this specific one was not around very long because of how complicated it is. Thias's video goes really deep into the different versions of the rear sights. There's a lot.
Yeah.
This is not the most common because of how complicated it is. But I'm really happy that mine has it because it's the weirdest, and I love me some weird stuff. So we have, you go through it. You saw it, yeah.
Yeah. So it has a so it's windage adjustable.
Which is this locking bar.
But there's a little locking bar up top that you flick it over, and then this thing. I mean, and it moves like widely, like a lot more than any service rifle really needs. And you have to remember to lock it back after you get it to that position. Otherwise it moves around. And then it's a ladder sight with a very overly complicated. If you want to move the ladder up and down, there's a screw that you have to unscrew up and down,
and then screw it in place. Otherwise, it just falls.
And then when you get it to that height, you have not one but two choices.
Yes.
Of what you want to look through. So you have your little peep sight, like a little aperture sight,
which is lower. You have to remember where you're at because it is underneath the notch sight, so it's lower in terms of range.
And then you have the actual little sort of U-notch on the top, and there's two markings for each one. Yep. So you have to kind of look at which one you want to get it. Now, probably on a range. Fantabulous.
It's still a tangent too.
Oh yeah, but it's still on top of everything. It's also a tangent, so you can move this up. You can slide it to a certain position that you'd want.
And there's markings on this side of the numbers of the. So it's a tangent, it's a ladder, it's a notch and post, it's a notch and blade, and a peep sight, and it has full windage adjustment left and right to an insane degree. And I mentioned this to Danny. I was like, people make fun of the Arasaka for having air-to-aircraft sights. Why is this not a joke? I mean, obviously, this got replaced very quickly, but this is a joke.
yeah. I mean, even the AA sights got replaced too, but everyone knows about that. Oh, that's crazy. They put, but AA sights is just like one piece of steel that moves up and down, where this is. Oof.
And we talked about under duress. operating the magazine. I cannot imagine under duress operating this tiny little wheel.
Oh, no way. Because the notches are so small that you would have to look at in order to...
and it is not, I should say, like...
you would need excellent lighting conditions, first of all.
Well, you can't see it.
If it's early in the morning, late in the afternoon, or evening, night, nope, you're not seeing this.
Well, and... I mean, a good example would be like a Canadian AK or something like that, where where you give a spring and there's steps and it locks it in place when you get to the next step, right? That doesn't happen, so you can't just feel it going
there's
up.
No feel. It's just
no
completely.
Feel to it.
It's just all smooth. It's just working. Yeah, we're moving the slide up and down, all smooth, no notches. Same thing with the tangent. Same thing with the windage. It's all done by looking at it. There's no feel. It's insane. This is a very, very highly overcomplicated rear sight for a military.
Very much so.
And it was replaced. So I guess
they saw it and replaced it. Yes. I don't remember the exact details, but Matthias's videos goes into that. But there was a specific person that wanted that rear sight, and he put it on, and then finally I think that they got them to take it off, because that's not the final version.
I think there's the same thing with the Gewehr 98 and the Longa-Visier, like the roller coaster
that's not
sights.
the original.
I think that wasn't like a Paul Mauser thing. That was some dude that knew the Kaiser, I think, and pushed for that. So that's like a weird thing where like just one. You get one asshole that has a great idea of a rear sight and gets it put on the gun.
Going back to the idea that the Krag was a range rifle and that's how they tested it and didn't do any actual field testing of it, that's a great range sight. You're on the range.
Oh yeah,
that's everything you want. Everything.
Target rifle. This is great. It's a bright sunny day, and you're just having a good old time, and you just want to
do whatever
precisely
you want.
Adjust. You fired three volleys, and I needed to smidge to the left. That's exactly what the sight is.
That's a range sight.
It's a fair weather range sight. Mm-hmm. It's just so the Lee Navy sight. It's not like super simple in today's terms maybe, but it's. For the day, I don't think it's
comparable. I would say to any of the other.
It looks
Mauser designs.
It looks very similar to a lot of the Mauser ladder flip up sights. So, I think comparing it to the contemporaries, I think it's average. I think it's just an average decent sight. All right,
it's about
complicated sights.
Action strength.
Oh.
Can't talk about a Lee Navy without talking about action strength.
Yes, the very last con of any of the guns, any of the points we're going to make is the action strength of the Lee Navy, because I think of all the guns, especially milsurps, that you hear about blowing up, I can't think of too many that have killed people.
Yeah, and then every time I posted this somewhere, it comes up. It's either what is that or it's going to blow up on you, and that is because there were two high-profile failures. I believe it was a gentleman at Sarco that owned one of these, and he was killed, unfortunately. It was like 2003, I want to say, 2003. And the as far as we know, it was a case head failure.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. I don't know the investigation into that gun in particular, but that's what it's assumed to be, is case head failure.
Yeah. So case head failure, or did he accidentally do the whole pistol powder instead of rifle powder deal? That
one we don't know. But the second one happened in, I want to say 2010 or 2011.
Yeah.
Now, you can go to Ian's video. He has a video on that gun. That's the one that Ian has that was destroyed. And he says he's going to do a video about testing strength of the Lee action with a sporter, which... Still waiting on that, Ian.
yeah, that would be cool.
But that guy that had that happen to him, I've actually spoken to. He's on Reddit, and I posted this, and he started talking to me. He was talking to me about what happened to him and how he had, it was case head failure for sure on his. His was not loaded hot. It was not loaded anything special. It was pretty mild load. And what it was, 6mm brasses doesn't exist, so you have to do conversions. Common conversion for these for a long time was 30-40 Krag brass, actually, ironically, and unfortunately you have to modify the rim because first off, this is not rimmed, it's semi-rimmed. And then there's an extractor groove. So you have to cut an extractor groove into the brass for 3040, which weakens the case end.
If the brass wasn't designed to handle that groove, you're severely weakening the case at a very important part of the case. Yeah, right at the back. Luckily, that guy survived.
Yes, he had. I saw some pictures. He got hit with shrapnel in his head, right off the top of his forehead, and he had a big old bruise there. But he didn't have any other major injuries. The gun was obviously a total loss, but it was a case head failure in terms of his. And he said 100% that he believes the other gentleman's was case head failure as well, because he believes that it was 3040 brass in his instance as well, which was the most common version at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because you can't get the brass anywhere else. You're not shooting old surplus or anything. It doesn't exist. So I'm just going to say it, like, probably, you know, most people reloading it, it's probably 3040. Because that's a relatively common brass. You know, people still have it, they still make it.
Most of the places that I know where you can get it, where it's converted, like Buffalo Arms, stuff like that, they don't use 3040. They use either 280 Swift, which is actually originally was 6mm Lee. 280 Swift came from 6mm Lee. It's just a little bit shorter. Overall case length is a little bit shorter, but it's essentially the same cartridge, just a little bit different.
That's neat.
And then 2560, I think, is another one they like to use, but they don't use 3040 anymore. So I think that's more credence to the fact that something shouldn't be used for this. Oh, we got a visitor.
Come on, boo-boo. He wants to be in the video.
He likes being in the video. He's a good dog. So yeah, I can't say for sure if this is a weak action. It blew up, and we do know that later versions had extra holes drilled in them for gas relief. Mine does not have that.
Yeah,
it does have a gas relief hole in the bolt, but later versions have them in the receiver underneath the wood so that it would just blow out the sides instead of blowing back.
Yeah, which a lot of more refined actions, you know, like the Mauser, obviously, they kind of have, you know, gas mitigating factors built into the whole action for specifically stuff like case head failures, which, you know, wasn't completely unheard of at the time.
No, and as we talked about, there was a lot of ammunition problems with overpressurization, which is why they started doing the extra holes, because they were worried about overpressurization and a failure. So I think the Navy did know about a potential issue, which is why we see extra holes drilled later on, but I don't think it was considered a big enough concern for it to be retroactive, because obviously not all of them ended up that way.
Yeah, so weaker action than its contemporaries, I think, would be the standard of the rifles at the time. Like,
well, I mean, 1895. So we have the 93. We have the 1895 Chilean. We have, which are different. You've told me multiple times. Oh, we have the Swedish. That's different as well, right?
Yeah, all slightly different.
We have the Krag, which I've never heard anything about blowing up a U.S. Krag.
Yeah. Don't really hear about, like, Mosin's blowing up.
No. Carcanos, not there. Lee Infields, you wouldn't have an SMLE at that point, would you? What is that? That's a long Lee?
I don't know. I'm not digging into
I don't know
stuff.
about Lee.
It might be a long Lee, maybe, or a Lee Metford.
Yeah. But nothing has this reputation. Like I said, you put this out there and it's either going to be, I don't know what that is, or it's going to blow up. And I don't think the only other thing that I think gets that kind of reputation is a low serial Springfield.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Even just this past weekend at the gun show, somebody bought like a low serial, like a 5-digit 1903.
That's cool.
And I was like, oh yeah, it was like a 1912 dated gun, a 1912 dated barrel. And I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that was at this show. I probably would have bought it. And he was showing it to me. He's like, hey, what do you think? Everyone says he's going to blow up. And I'm like, it's fine. There's a number of factors. First off, there's attrition on the bad ones. We've talked about this before.
We talked about it on the podcast, and Matthias talked about it too.
Yeah, but it's like the two guns that people warn he's going to blow up. Low serial number 1903s, and
three.
What's the third?
Arasaka. Which are the training guns.
Yeah, the training guns blow up. So that's, Which
because people try to put live ammunition in a training rifle, and that's not meant to be done that way. So
it's like it's a non-gun, really.
Yeah, it's not really a gun technically. So you're putting a live ammunition in a prop, and then it blows up, and people are like, oh, all the guns are bad. No, it's a prop that blew up because you put it in a prop.
yeah. Essentially, so action strength. It's a thing everybody thinks about with the Lee Navy.
It's a
maybe
concern.
Maybe it's the biggest con.
It was a big enough concern for me that I did not buy any converted brass, and I purchased brass that was made specifically to my gun by RCC Brass, and it's CNC'd, not drawn, so it's actually a stronger alloy, and they're individually made, so they're very precise in terms of consistency and stuff like that. So it was a big enough concern for me that I did that, which
it's a smart move.
It's extremely expensive. It was about $5 a case, around $5 a case with shipping.
Man.
So for 50 cases, and you have to buy 50 as a minimum, and it's going to be it's an investment. I figured if I'm spending the money,
you can reload them a lot more than like regular brass.
Yes, but if I'm also, hopefully nothing would ever happen to me with that. But if I'm going to spend the money, and this is about Ian's video actually, if you're spending the money on something, don't cheap out on the ammunition. If you're buying a machine gun, don't buy cheap ammunition. If you're buying a Lee Navy, why buy the cheapest possible ammunition you're going to throw in it? Especially if you're concerned about action strength.
Yeah. I mean, with that video, the example Ian used with Turk ammo and a Mauser. But the example that I'm going to use is like Yugoslav or any of those kind of Milsurpy ammos in a G43, even a G41, because those have blown up from.
Yeah, those have actually blown up.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't heard of anybody like getting hurt with that, but it's always, I think it's similar, like case head failures.
Separation. Yeah.
So it's a concern, and if you get an expensive rifle like a Lee Navy or whatever.
But these are expensive too. These more so than a Lee Navy,
Yeah. So you can't skimp out on the ammo. You have to get good ammo, and if good ammo doesn't exist, you pay the money for the quality components.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. That was my whole feeling behind it. Is if I spent the money on this, I'm gonna spend the money to make sure it's safe.
Yeah. So it's smart. So it's the way you got to do it with that. So it'll be awesome when we can shoot that one day. Because is there a video on YouTube of a Lee Navy being shot?
Not a good one. There's a couple of them
from like 10 years ago
that
or something.
Are very poorly done. But I have not seen one that's actually. The ones that I've seen are not full military. I've seen sporters.
Okay. Yeah. So it'd be cool one day. Well, I guess us and Matthias when he gets when he gets the rifle and he does it. That'll be the two videos. Hopefully, only two on the internet. It'll be us.
Yes, because Ian, I don't think has done a shooting video of a Lee Navy. Yeah. So he's had a couple of them on, but I don't think he's actually done shooting videos. Yeah,
he's done really good videos on the rifle, but not shooting. Just it's like a Siamese, man. You just can't get the ammo for it, so you gotta roll your own. You have probably one of the very few videos of a Siamese rifle being shot on there as well. Yeah, I'm one of like 8 people that have shot one in the U.S. It's not all that different. Yeah. Anyway. Cool. All right, so our conclusion now, at the end of all those pros and cons, your personal opinion, if you had to, defeat the Spanish in Cuba, which one of these guns would you want to take as you roll up there next to good old Teddy? I'd rather have the Lee Navy. In terms of, the thing you have to remember though is, and I know this too at the time, is that there's a lack of training because you don't have lack of ammunition. You have a lack of quality ammunition, so you have a concern there as well. But you have ammunition quality issues with the Krag too. Yeah,
because that's not just...
It's not unique to any one particular gun.
This time period, it's still, smokeless is still very new.
Yeah.
So...
less than 10 years.
So it's still being worked on in terms of, and especially in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is the first smokeless powder rifle, and this is the second. So we got some kind of, hiccups at the beginning, obviously. So if I'm going to pick based on weight, ergonomics, we'll just say ergonomics, better in my opinion, in terms of ammunition. 6mm is very small, and I am a fan of 7mm. We've talked before, and I don't know. The tests at the time say that the 6mm is comparable to the 30-40 in terms of stopping power at a certain distance.
My stopping power.
And killing strength is basically what they were going for. And the idea being that even if it was a wound, the enemy is not going to continue fighting if they're wounded. So I don't know, as a soldier I would necessarily think that, but I think that going from it's a big step down to go from 45-70 to this, in terms of a feel, in terms of like what you see, what you expect to know happen. It's a weird step. Yeah,
that's hard. I mean, there's a thing with shooting, those big bore calibers, up in the 40s and 50 calibers stuff, where it does shove you back, and you see and at the time black powder, you see a big plume of smoke, and it's like boom, like you shot something.
Yeah.
Versus a smokeless cartridge, relatively low recoiling, you shoot and it doesn't feel like much happened.
Right.
But the bullet's impact on target is as good or better.
Yes.
So
that's,
it's like perception of the shooter, but you can't ask the dead guy you shot. Like,
no, yeah. How did that feel?
I'm doing a survey, so you just got shot with 6mm. How do you feel?
How does that feel?
Yeah.
Not great.
Mind if we shoot you with the 45-70 and you can tell us how it
That would probably be a lot worse in terms of at the same distance, like 100 yards. I would feel like that would hurt more.
Yeah.
But that's the whole stopping power argument, right? This whole stopping power argument is if it's bigger, it hurts more, and versus I think what they were going for was, doesn't matter how much it hurts, if he's hurt, he's going to be out of action. And I think I would just go for this. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think I would go for this for ergonomics and the quickness and the speed of loading. That's a big difference in my opinion. That was a big problem they had in Cuba with the loading in the Krag, was a lot of ammunition was dumped on the ground. And I think that's a big difference. I have a lot of concern for the hole in the magazine. We talk about...
It's like right on the part that you sit on the ground when you're like lying prone to shoot.
We talk about how an M95 has a hole, and Berthier's, they had the hole, but they covered them up. So especially with the extended magazine, obviously, the M95 hole is that big. It's like the size of a postage stamp. Versus this is the entire length of the magazine.
Yeah, it's the entire length of the cartridge. Can fit all the way through it. So
cartridge plus.
So it's a gigantic,
clip.
Gaping hole in the bottom of the
cartridge
magazine.
Plus clip.
Oh yeah, both.
So it's like this. This is a concern. Obviously, anything goes in there. I don't know how this works. I don't know how this action goes. They
must have had a contraption that fit on and flipped down or something. And maybe it's one of those. Yeah, well, maybe it's one of those things that they thought they were going to do it. Kind of like with the Swede, and they milled in a hole in the front band, like in the bayonet, the front barrel band, for an accessory that they thought they would make, but never made, and it never became a thing. So maybe there was going to be an accessory there, like a cover that just never happened.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Follow-up question. So we're comparing, long boy to long boy. But what if somebody was going to hand you a Krag Shouty?
Oh, the carbine?
Yeah.
Those are significantly smaller than both of these. And I've never held one in person, but I can tell you that they are...
Yeah, that's a toughie. Krag.
It's
Krag
a lot
carbine.
handier.
Still have the other.
You still have the other issues. You have the
Yeah,
issues of loading. I think the issues of loading is my biggest concern. I can't fire the gun without loaded ammunition in the gun, and if I'm fumbling to get ammunition in the gun, then I'm not shooting the gun. I think that's my biggest concern. I think that's the issue, is the magazine on that. I would prefer this magazine versus that magazine, I should say. That's just my biggest thing. If I'm being shot at, I don't want to have to figure out how to open it, dump ammunition in.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to lose ammunition that way. Or get dirt in the action because you're picking up rounds off the ground.
Yeah, maybe. Now, devil's advocate, because as I'm thinking of this, I remembered I was at a reenactment at night, and I was trying to reload my K98K in the pitch black and lining up the clip and the ammo. And that's something that's, when you can see, it's real easy. But in the pitch black, like, it was a little bit of fumbling that way. So somebody could maybe argue that with this magazine, you could at least feel it and dump ammo in there.
I think that's getting into more, like we talked about, where the Army is trying to come up with reasons to compensate. Like, you're trying to come up with a scenario where that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So,
and the scenarios where that's not a bad idea is not as common as the overall scenarios. You know what I mean? So I just think that the manipulation of that under duress is too complicated without losing ammunition in the process.
Yeah. Your ammo's already, heavier and everything, and maybe you're already short of ammo, and then you're dropping it.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know if those accounts are true. I've heard the same things of, the countless live ammo, on San Juan Hill or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but if ammo is already in short supply, you can't be dropping it.
The style, the way it is, if I'm being shot at, I'm not super worried about getting it perfectly in there. It's just tossing it in as fast as possible, and that doesn't have a way to stop you from throwing it on the ground.
So
that's just my opinion.
I'm finding myself torn because I'm trying to answer the same question of what I want, a Krag or the Lee. Now the Krag is something that's very, very familiar overall. Mauser, flag safety.
Yes.
I like the big knob that you can recock easily.
The safety on this is a very weird. Let me flip this around without hitting the ceiling. Is this lever here, and it's I've fired this action, so we need to cock the action first. And when it's up, you disconnect the trigger, and the action's already locked, so you can't open the action anyway. So the safety, all it does is disconnect the trigger.
Yeah.
And it's a lever, or it's not even a button, I would call it. It's a lever, right?
Yeah. It's a weird. It's a
lever on the side next to the bolt release. It's not close enough where you could mistake it, but it's not. You have to remove your hand from the firing position to get to it, and then you have to move your hand back. And it's not a situation. It's very easy to have to go like this to claw it up, versus a situation where the flag safety is right here. You can thumb it. You cannot. I can thumb this, but you have to move your hand way far away from the action
to flick it on.
Yeah.
Well, I think disengaging the safety would be a bigger. So safety on now. I think disengaging the safety would be a bigger issue. So is it? It's cocked, right?
It's cocked. It's ready to fire.
So it's cocked.
The safety is on.
Turning around. Safety's on. Okay.
First off, you got to remember you have a lack of training too.
Yeah, this is like my first. Oh, so maybe I'd be on par with like
you have a lack of training because you have no ammunition. So you're handed that. I
mean, I have personally lack of training with this because today is the first day that I've really messed with the Lee Navy. So, yeah. My first instinct was try to turn the bolt. So safety on. Walking around. It's not bad.
No, it's not terrible, but it's totally different.
Yeah, very
Everything
different.
about this gun is different.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
It has to be different.
I can't think of another safety like this on another gun. It doesn't
do anything
different.
while the gun is decocked.
But the buttons on the side, me just grabbing this for the first time, it was a little bit like, okay, what does this do, and why does this jingle?
Yeah, it jingles because that's the bolt release.
But like that jingles, and that's what is that? Why is there jangly bits? and the extractor jingles.
Yes, the extractor's free floating, so it just sits around, and then you can see it moving around in there it sounds like it's broken.
First thing that I kind of thought of when I saw it was like, ooh, something came loose.
So,
but no.
I mean, this is the cool part. You can do that, but like,
cool points, unique factor points,
which doesn't translate into necessarily a good rifle for the military.
Yeah, yeah. So, oof.
A lot of these on your wall have cool points for being unique, but they didn't really make it.
Yeah, nope. I don't know, man. It's hard. The Lee Navy being so foreign to me.
I think maybe we have to shoot it.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to shoot both of these side by side to see first. But like with more experience with the Krag and no experience with the Lee Navy, I'm like gravitating towards safety. Like I want a Krag carbine. Like that's neat. Like maybe once I get in combat and my cool, neat rifle that I'm familiar with, I can't load because I'm dropping all the ammo. Then maybe that'll
by the time period too, where you have the Spanish-American War, they've had some time to make improvements. So you have the 92 model and then the 96 model, and then Spanish-American War was 96, I believe, right? So you have the 96 model starting to come out, 96, 97, I think.
Yeah, to 98.
Yeah, because the 98 did not participate in the model 98 was not done before the war ended. So you have the 96 model in the war, and you have improvements to it versus this is brand new, brand spanking new, and you have all the problems with ammunition. So
it's hard.
It's hard to say.
If there wasn't a war,
but we wouldn't know the ammunition issue until it started happening. That's the problem.
Yeah, and if it happens like on a range or whatever, then like, oh, let's fix that. But if it happens in a war, immediate bad press.
Yeah, very much so.
So now, give me a Krag that has a packet loading system and is maybe 6.5. That would be
make the Krag more like this, but not as weird.
Yeah, like simplify the Krag's rear sight, make it in 6.5.
Give it a weird barrel.
Give it a nice pistol grip. This isn't a U.S. Krag. Oh, what
did you pick up?
It's a Norwegian Krag.
Oh yeah.
And 6.5. This is and the Norwegians had they had speed loading devices for these, or packet loading devices. Which is like, why didn't the U.S.?
I think Matthias touched on this too. The U.S. tested them, but by the point they were testing them, it's like this. It was not enough time to invest it. They knew they were going to go to something else, so there was no point. So they never bothered to continue the investment.
Yeah. So here's something for you. This is a little off topic, guys. Sorry, but. If you want to put the lead down, and so work the action on this, just so you can remember. I know you know.
I know the.
So the U.S. Krag action.
Extremely smooth.
Neato, smooth, right? You got it. Now do the.
I've never held a Norwegian. That's a lot lighter.
Yep.
Oh wow, that's a lot more purchase right there. You have to. That's a lot more pull-up on that.
There's more locking area on this. This is technically a stronger area. The Norwegians improved it. So in Arsenal, Matthias has a good video on the Norwegian Krags. He's got one on a specific gun. That's very good. So check it out if you're interested in Norwegians.
Now that I've done it more than once, you can tell I tell I needed more pull because of that. Because of the lack of locking surfaces.
The U.S. Krag spoils you.
You don't need to.
Just real nice and smooth. But
you need to yank on it, but then this is more typical, I would assume, of a more traditional bolt action rifle that you would be used to, is that you have to tell it to do it, versus that you could ask it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the turn down variations, it's got the 1912 has that double.
Is this a magazine cutoff as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it had that on there as well. The Krag has that. The Lee does not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's forward thinking. The Lee's forward thinking. You don't have to worry about a magazine cutoff. We didn't even mention that in the video. Don't have to worry about accidentally flipping a button on. That disables one of the most important features of your gun.
Sorry, I'm overlapping you. Yeah, that magazine
cutoffs.
Magazine cutoffs.
Even
great ideas.
Even in 1912 and beyond. When that one was made.
But I think that, like you said, though, these are designed for the previous war, and that idea that you would do single shot until you needed the rapid fire was a thing. It was a thing in the Lee infields. The SMLE had the magazine cutoffs, right?
Yeah, but apparently the magazine cutoff and the SMLE served more of a safety role than an actual mag cutoff role.
Well,
in the earlier Lee Metford and stuff, I think.
The early 1903s had magazine cutoffs, I believe. So,
and I think that carried over, like they all did. Even like the ones made in like the 1940s do.
Oh. So that idea is still there. That's not there. And I don't know if that's just not possible. I assume it's possible. That's just not possible with that action. But that wasn't a part of that action. The magazine cutoff is not a thing for the Lee.
Yeah. Who knows? Because a lot of times the magazine cutoff was a way of slowing down soldiers firing.
Yeah.
Because they don't need. Yeah. Because before mechanized transport and everything, you don't want soldiers wasting ammo. So you build in a mechanism into the gun to slow them down. But maybe with the new light 6mm, that ammo concern's not such a big thing,
Well, another thought that just occurred to me was that you're on the supply because you're on the ship that has the ammunition,
That's true. Yeah.
Maybe that is the idea. Like you have the Marines that are detached, but the ship has your ammo. So it's there.
Yeah.
In terms of like logistics, you may need to get more, but like the gun, the ammunition's in the ship. So I never thought about that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot one thing. Can you bring up the Krag? So I forgot one thing. And I don't know if this is specific to the 1898 model or not. There are rivets in the handguard here.
Oh.
They're metal. And when you shoot this, they get hot, which defeats the purpose of a handguard.
Yeah, you make a handguard, and there's 4 of them.
So there's 2 here, and there's
2 in the back
here.
And 2 in the front. And when they contact the barrel, and they heat up directly, so you still can't touch that area. So the piece of wood that's there to protect your hand from getting burned when you grab it
still burns
burns you.
Yes, not as much maybe because it's separated, but the first time I shot this, I filmed myself and I shot it about 10 or 15 times in a row, and I was like talking to myself on the camera, and I was like, this is amazing. I love this. It's so much fun to shoot. It's so easy. The action's so smooth. And then I went, I like this. God dang it. I burned myself. I'm on video burning myself with this because it's hot. I didn't expect it. Because you wouldn't expect your handguard to get hot.
Cool.
It's kind of purpose.
Maybe that's a
Krag con.
Yeah, a Krag con.
But I don't know if that's specific to the Model 98. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about Krags to say that for sure.
But neat. Wow. This was a long video. If you're still watching this, kudos to you. Good on you for still watching this. Maybe
we didn't even talk about the bayonet.
Oh yeah, the good old the Lee bayonet, which looks just like a rolling block bayonet.
Yeah, so it is identical to a rolling block bayonet, except
the height and diameter of the little muzzle ring attachment.
That's it. This is the Frog. It's the exact same. It's the exact same bayonet.
Yeah. Now this is a long boy right here. I mean, it's kind of a short bayonet for the time period.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking it's not a Bayo sword, as I like to call them. I know Sam doesn't like me saying that, but
this is a long video, you guys. Either I'm sorry or you're welcome. I don't know which one, but
there's not very many in-depth discussions of a Lee versus a Krag on the internet. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. No, I think we made a lot of points that there's not too many videos on the Lee Navy, and so I guess maybe we talked about some stuff. Hopefully you learned. Comment and let me know if you guys liked this long format. I just want to know what you guys think. That's the only way that I know if you guys like it. So comment, let me know if you hated the length and you want shorter and more concise, or if you liked it, let me know that too. Appreciate it. If you also want to comment and thank Aaron for coming all the way to Kansas City and bringing his Lee Navy, which was expensive. So it's, if it wasn't for Aaron, we wouldn't be doing this.
I think that what I have on the table vastly is outnumbered by what you have on the wall behind me.
Still very cool. Lee Navy's still very cool. So so thank you for bringing this and for making this video possible. Yeah, and maybe for some people, this is putting a face to the voice.
True,
they probably hear your voice.
I am in one of the videos, the Siamese Hauser video.
You're in a couple, right?
Siamese
and something.
I think the one with Sam. I'm in like the beginning doing an explanation of what's going on.
Oh yeah. The M95 versus K31.
Yeah, where a lot of people yell at me that that's not fair and that the K31 is a much better firearm and Sam picks the M95, and I'm sorry, our opinions are wrong. So
opinions are opinions.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.